SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Audio check 1 3. Is the Honorable Mandingo there?
Yes, Mandingo, African from Jamaica, the Gaviite, so meaning the Pan-Africanist, giving thanks and praises to the Almighty Creator, Ra, Olodumare, Chukwu, this Sunday, the 18th of October, 2015. Yes, and yesterday, Saturday, was the birthday anniversary of RICO Rodriguez, the great trombonist from Jamaica, who was born on the 17th of October, 1934, and passed away on Friday, the 4th of September, 2015. So yesterday, he would have been 81 years old in this dimension. The day passed on, 4th of September, Friday, was the anniversary of my father's birthday. Tomorrow, incidentally, RICO Rodriguez was my very good friend for almost 50 years. And tomorrow, Monday, the 19th of October 2015, is the birthday of my favorite whaler, the most revolutionary of the whalers, Peter TOSH, who was born in Westmoreland, Western Jamaica, on the 19th of October, 1944. Peter TOSH, the stepping razor. So today's show is also dedicated to the memories of RICO Rodriguez, the great trombonist, and also Peter TOSH, my favorite whaler of the Whaling Whalers group. And I will also be talking about the 70th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress, 5th Pan-African Conference, which was held in Manchester 70 years ago. Began on the 15th of October and went on till the 21st of October. And one of the key organizers was my mother's cousin, my grandmother's cousin, Amy Ashwood Garvey, the first wife of Marcus Garvey. And other people who were there were like Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, Ras McConnell from Guyana, W. Du Bois, and others. Yes, George Padmore and others were at this historic 5th Pan-African Conference, which was in 1945, held in Manchester, England, from the 15th to the 21st. The first day, the 15th of October in 1945, the first day's proceedings were actually chaired by my cousin, Amy Ashwood Garvey, the first wife of Marcus Garvey. So those are the three main topics for the next 2 hours, and I will also be giving other news and views. And Brother Silver Fox, don't forget for me to talk about the decision as to where the 8th Pan-African Congress meeting should be taking place in the Caribbean. Should it be in Haiti? Should it be in Cuba? Should it be in Barbados, etc.? Very, very important. Very, very important. But let me just start in terms of sequence, in terms of age, with a song by the great trombonist who was taught by the genius trombonist Don Drummond, RICO Rodriguez, a track from his album called Man from Warika, and I would like you to play the track on it, my brother, which is called Africa. Africa.
Alright. Let me just locate that track. Africa.
Yes.
RICO.
From RICO.
RICO.
This album was actually produced by my schoolmate in Jamaica, Carl Peterson, the engineer and musician, in 1976. And the studios used were Joe Gibbs by Retirement Crescent and Randy's at 17 North Parade, downtown Kingston.
SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Yes, yes.
And let me just say, that Papa Love is locked in already.
Well, you know, I want to say special request to my dear brother, Papa Love from Homestead, Spanish Town. We are both Spanish Townians. He's from Homestead. I'm from the adjoining St. John's Road. And give thanks always, my dear brother, Papa Love of Papa Love Sound System, and also one of the top tailors, clothes makers in Spanish Town and so Jamaica from many years ago. And special request to you, Silver Fox, for the very great work that you are doing in allowing the communication system of SFDC radio be a tool for the advancement and for the progress of African people worldwide. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely essential work that you are doing, my dear brother. And let me just recap, is that I have, at my own expense, I have designed and printed a booklet to honor the memory of Emmanuel Rico Rodriguez. I got it done on Friday at the printers, got the copies delivered to me. So it was in time for his birthday yesterday, and I gave it to some selected people. And you, Brother Silver Fox and Papa Love, I have a copy each of this program, this booklet that I did in honor of my dear friend, the great trombonist, Rico Rodriguez. Okay? And I must tell you also, Silver Fox, musically speaking, that I have been hearing a lot of people talking about this coming dance last Friday, the 30th of October in Luton, with myself, Sir Lloyd Coxsnuff, Sir Cox the Sound System, I Spy, and, you know, with those two sounds from Luton. I've been hearing a lot of buzz. So this is a very, very good sign, you know.
Yes, Brother Mandingo, let me just say, I just use my dominance on the internet. It's been well promoted.
It's working.
Yeah.
You know, but remember the hard copies, the flyers that I want no later than this coming week. Hello?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Yes, yeah, you know, good reception, you know, both sound system people and other people. When I say sound system people, I'm talking about owners. I've been talking. One person who is definitely coming is Lord Gelly himself. He's coming to the dance. He says he's not going to miss this. And there are others, definitely. Yes, the man Rico Rodriguez, the great, who passed away recently. Man who, that album, Man from Warika, you just heard the track played. And of course, for the rest of the program, you'll be hearing some of his tracks also. And before I talk about Peter TOSH, my favorite wheeler, I want you to play another track from the Man from Warika album by Rico Rodriguez. And I want you to play the title track, Man from Warika. Man from Warika.
SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Yes, indeed. Man from Warika. Yes. And some news and views is that let me just mention that last Monday, the 12th, was a commemoration of African Holocaust Day, because Marcus Garvey Jr., my physics teacher at Kingston Technical High School in Jamaica, and also the head of the political party that we formed in the 1960s in Jamaica, the African Nationalist Union, when he was the President General of his father's organization, the UNINACL, in 1992, at the 39th International Convention of the organization in Washington in the U.S., it was decreed that every 12th of October would be commemorated as African Holocaust Day. This was totally opposite to the Europeans who, in 1992, 500 years after Columbus invaded the region, are having a Columbus Day as a holiday in the United States. Yes, to celebrate this murderer. And the reason why it's the 12th of October, it's because the 12th of October was when he first invaded the region, when he invaded the island of Guanani. That's the native name. Not Indian name, because the people are not Indians. Never use the word Indian, because the people are not Indians. Columbus thought that he was near some islands near to India, and he was thousands of miles away. So this is what happened, right? So that is the date that they have as Columbus Day. So last week, Monday, it was a public holiday in the United States by the racists. They call it Columbus Day. But we, as Marcus Garvey Jr. said, for us it's African Holocaust Day, because it set in train the capture, the enslavement, and the transport of our people to the islands in the Caribbean and elsewhere. And in that which began in the 16th century and went on till the 19th century, this carrying of our people like chattel, like goods from Mother Africa, claimed at least 80 million African lives. What happened to us as African people is the greatest, the biggest genocide in history. And yet, David Cameron would want us to so-called move on and forget what they did to us, and doesn't want to pay reparations. But he has to pay reparations, because what he and others have now is as a result of what his ancestors who enslaved our ancestors got. They got wealthy and rich. It was because of the enslaved labor of our African ancestors. And we don't refer to our ancestors as slaves. We say enslaved Africans, because to refer to our ancestors just as slaves means that we are dehumanizing. That's racism, our African ancestors.
Also, Brother Mandingo,
yes.
Even me myself, we grow up using a term that is wrong, which is to say they went to Africa and captured slaves. They never captured slaves. They captured people.
Precisely, exactly.
And
enslaved
them.
Captured. You notice I use the word that they went to Africa and they captured and enslaved our African ancestors.
Yes.
Enslaved. Exactly. You're totally right, my brother. Totally right. And of course, it is always we correct ourselves, and certain things that we used to do when we have the right knowledge, we do the right thing. And perfectly right, my brother. Perfectly right, you know. And let us remember that in terms of power, because Marcus Garvey said power is the only argument that satisfies man. It was on Friday the 16th, just Friday gone. It was the anniversary of when Chairman Mao started nuclear weapons, his nuclear weapons program in 1954. And this was made possible, only made possible, with Russian help, Russian-Soviet help, technologically, because they didn't have the technology. But because there was a Soviet party, Communist Party, and the Chinese Communist Party, they got the technology. And so this is how China became a nuclear power. Chairman Mao started it. And Chairman Mao is the one who is responsible for the power that China and Chinese are in the world today, because he united the country. This is the same thing that we have to do in our African motherland. Chairman Mao was not concerned about non-Chinese people saying what Chinese should do and allowing non-Chinese people to tell them what to do and so on. Chairman Mao was Chinese first and last, and so he used whatever he could use, whether people and otherwise, for the unification in building China and for making China the power that it is today. If it were not for the work of Chairman Mao and Zhou Enlai and others, China would not be a world power. And this is the same thing that Marcus Garvey said that we must have in Africa, that we must have a United States of Africa. In fact, by the time Nikita Khrushchev withdrew suddenly all their technicians in July 1960, this is about 6 years after, they started to help the Chinese to develop their nuclear program. It was too late, because by the 16th of October 1964, the Chinese, under the leadership of Chairman Mao, was able to have their first test in operation. Yes, codenamed 596. In fact, John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson wanted to destroy the nuclear capacity. But Nikita Khrushchev told them no, he would not agree for them to do this. Yes, this is a fact. So, China is a power in the world today and is on the Security Council in the world today. They are a nuclear power. Africa will only be respected when it is powerful militarily, like the US, like the Chinese. See, the Indians and the Pakistanis, they are nuclear powers. Why is it that Africans worldwide are so disrespected and not regarded in any respected way? It's because we lack the military power. Why is it that you think that the United States and Britain and so on, they have to be careful with North Korea? It's because North Korea have the nuclear bomb. Power is the only thing that they recognize.
And you know something, Brother Mandingo?
Yes, go on, my brother.
They do know that. That's why, as what you just said about North Korea and Pakistan and India, because
and
of that,
India, yes.
Whether them have 10 or 1, once you have it, they got to show you respect.
Exactly. Respect, exactly.
So power is what bring forth respect.
Respect. Power. So this is why Nelson Mandela was traitorous, that when he and his ANC came in, they inherited a South Africa where the racists in South Africa had nuclear bombs. But what did Nelson Mandela do? He got rid of the nuclear bombs. He acted in the interest of these European racists and got rid of the nuclear bombs that South Africa had. Why? Because the Europeans did not want any African country having nuclear bombs. This is what Nelson Mandela traitorously did. Got rid of the nuclear bombs that were inherited. That's why they praise him so much and write all kind of wonderful things about him. Think about it, those of you who are not thinking. Why do you think the Europeans love Nelson Mandela so much? It was because he was doing their bidding. The majority of the land in South Africa is still owned by the Europeans. And also, to a lesser extent, by the Indians. This is why the people there in South Africa are suffering. This is why you have Julius Malema in South Africa forming that economic freedom party to win economic independence and following the example of President Mugabe. This is it. Very important. I also want to tell you people about reading. You don't have to buy it. Go online or in some library and read in today's Daily Mail on Sunday, where Tony Blair has been exposed again in a leaked White House memo written by Colin Powell, whose parents were from St. Elizabeth, Jamaica, in March 2002, in a memo that he sent to George Walker Bush. He told George Walker Bush that Tony Blair was ready. He was gung-ho for war, for invading Iraq and getting rid of President Saddam Hussein. This was a year before the actual invasion. And Colin Powell also told George Walker Bush that Tony Blair would act as a PR person for this invasion of Iraq. So they have the full support of Tony Blair as a poodle, a British poodle. This again shows that it was a lie when Tony Blair was saying he was considering all options, because this was a memo from 1 year before showing that he was all for the invasion and the overthrow of President Saddam Hussein, who was eventually murdered because of the invasion by the British and the Americans. Yes, you're shakana. Yes, indeed. And what it goes to show is that there is this racist arrogance by Europeans that they want to dictate and tell people what to do. This morning on the BBC One Andrew Marr program from 9 to 10 this morning, in Andrew Marr interviewing Michael Fallon, who is in charge of the military part of the British government, he was saying that President Assad must be overthrown, that they must get rid of President Assad. Now, isn't this terroristic? Who is Michael Fallon and David Cameron to be saying that the head of state, the president or the prime minister of another country, must be overthrown? If anyone said that he, Cameron, should be overthrown, they would be accused of terrorism. You see how these people are hypocritical? This is racial ignorance.
Very hypocritical.
And support people overthrowing other people's presidents and prime ministers in other people's country.
And destabilizing.
For them, they say you're a terrorist.
Yes, and they like to destabilize certain regions
that they can't control.
Yes, and right now, because the Russians are giving a lending and to Assad,
they are upset.
Yes.
Why don't they say that the racist Saudi dictators in Saudi Arabia, why don't they say that they should be overthrown? No, it's because they are doing their bidding. Why don't they say that the racist Arab dictators in Bahrain who are killing protesters, why don't they say that they should be overthrown? No, because the British have a military base there. I mean, the military presence. And the Americans have a naval base in Bahrain. The Russians have a base, a military base in Syria. And they don't want that. But they want to have bases in people's country. And this is why they want to destroy the Iranian government also. Because they cannot control the Iranian government, which is independent. The racist hypocrisy and arrogance of these people. Michael Fallon, this morning telling people that President Assad must go. This is out of order. This is the typical racist imperialist mentality. Trying to dictate who should be running countries. None of that. It's the same way that over the years the British and the Americans and so on have tried to overthrow President Fidel Castro. They did the same thing with Saddam Hussein. They did the same thing with Gaddafi. And they did the same thing with President Sukarno in Indonesia. And replaced him with that dictator Suharto. And they are not. So this is it. People who they can't control, they try to overthrow. And the genocidal murderers who serve their interests, they let them stay in power. Like those who are in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, and those Gulf states like Qatar. That is a dictatorship. It is the owner of Al Jazeera station, and Al Jazeera means the island in English, is the ruler of Qatar. It's a dictatorship. In Saudi Arabia, they are still beheading people. So when they're talking about the IS beheading people, they are simply doing what the Saudis have been doing. Look about the British grandfather who has been in prison for over 1 year because he had some homemade wine. And they still want to give him over 300 lashes. You know? Why don't they talk about that and the beheadings of people, the racism?
And you know, Brother Mandingo,
Arabia against Africans and Pakistanis and Filipinos, etc. Go on, my brother.
What you call them? ISILs?
I just call them IS.
IS. You know that what IS is doing, right? Yes. These are stuff that the Christians were doing many years ago.
Yeah, but what has been happening with IS, these Muslim jihadists in Syria and in Iraq, is that once you do not agree with them, they kill you, like what they have done with other Muslims in Iraq and in Syria. And if you are not an Arab, they also kill and they rape your woman. They do it with the Kurds, they do it with the Yazidis and others. And they destroy the cultural artifacts, like, for example, in Syria, Palmyra. They destroy things that they say are not Islamic. This is racist and religious terrorism.
Yes, brother man. I'm not supporting them. What I'm saying is, these are things that the Christians have done centuries ago.
Yes, the Crusaders.
Yes.
Yes, the same type of thing, exactly. But let us remember that the original Christians in Syria and so on were not Europeans. Remember, Christianity was in Asia and in Africa before Christianity came to Europe. You see? And these terrorists murdering and raping people, it's the same havoc that they are wreaking in.
Brother Mandingo.
It's the same havoc that they are wreaking in Nigeria with Boko Haram.
Brother Mandingo, let me just cut you there. Yes. There's someone on Facebook by the name of Larry Cormack, and yes, that the person said, "Bless, can you tell Mandingo I would like a copy of the tribute to RICO?" And he's willing to pay for it.
Okay, no problem. But what you do,
yes,
get his full details from me, Silver Fox, and after the program, we will deal with things.
All right. Obviously, the person is listening right now, so that's good.
Yes, yes, it's a nice little booklet that I put together at my own expense. You know what I'm saying? Because I had to do this to redeem, because the program that was used in the church was not befitting RICO or anyone, honestly, you know. So this is why, at my own expense, no one asked me to, but he was my very good friend, still is my very good friend because he's simply in another dimension. And when I go on in the future, I will meet up with RICO again, just like I will meet up with my parents and my good friend like Prince Jasper, the great DJ of Whip Sound from Homestead, Spanish Town, and Seymour Stereo Williams and so on. You know, I'll meet up with those who have gone on before, you know. So make sure to get that brother's details and anybody else details who would like a copy of the booklet that in which I have paid homage to the great trombonist RICO Rodriguez. I have some lovely pictures with him in there. There's one when in 1961, his passport picture, and there is, I gave the eulogy at the church, and that is printed and so on. You know, interesting information and other stuff. Yes, indeed. So...
Yeah, you were talking about Boko Haram?
Yes, Boko Haram. They are doing the same thing like IS. They are doing the same thing in Nigeria, murdering and killing and raping people. This is what they have been doing, you know. And at this stage, I want you to play Peter Tosh, whose birthday it is tomorrow, the 19th. He was born on the 19th of October, 1944 in Westmoreland, Jamaica. You know, I have visited Peter Tosh's resting place for his physical remains at his home in Belmont that he shared with his mother near to Blue Fields by the coast there in Westmoreland, you know. And his mother, incidentally, she has passed on now, a very nice lady, very nice, very dignified. I know his son, Andrew Tosh. I know another son who lives in the States, etc., and so on. And let Papa Love, your father, can tell you this. For many, many years, Peter Tosh lived in Spanish Town. He lived in Spanish Town longer than he lived in Trench Town and longer than he lived at that place in Barbican, Plymouth Road or Avenue. But it's Plymouth definitely, where he was murdered with Jeff Dixon, who was from Belfield, Manchester, Jamaica, and who was a student of my mother at Belfield Government School. You know, Jeff Dixon, also known as Free Eye. And incidentally, Irie FM that plays reggae strictly was the idea of Peter Tosh and Free Eye. That's Jeff Dixon. They were making plans to have a reggae record radio station in Jamaica. And it was their murders that made them not go through with it. But the lawyer who they had, Clive Stanbury, Lloyd Stanbury, he went to Carl Young in St. Anne and gave him the idea if he would like to invest. And this is how Irie FM came about on the 1st of August 1990. But it was Peter Tosh's idea and Jeff Dixon's idea, Free Eye. Free Eye, who was my role model in the 1960s as a DJ. And of course, Papa Love knows who I'm talking about, Jeff Dixon, as he was known then on JBC Radio. In fact, there's a record that he sang with Master Griffiths for Studio One in the 60s called Words. Yes, indeed. So, at this time, I would like you to play from the 1977 Equal Rights album, one of the best albums in reggae music, the track called African, Peter Tosh.
And let me just say, at this moment in time, Brother Mandingo,
yes,
I find myself studying a lot of Peter Tosh tracks them for the past days. That's all I'm listening to, Peter Tosh, and I'm thinking to myself, why is only Bob Marley people talk about when this man was so great?
It's because of racism. What happened is that Chris Blackwell promoted deliberately Bob Marley over Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, because Bob Marley's father was English, and you know, in Jamaica as well as the rest of the African world, you find that people who are of mixed race get preferential privileges over Africans. So Bob Marley got promotion and got privileges over Peter Tosh and Bonnie Wheeler, the Africans, whose mothers and fathers were African. It's as simple as that. You know, with no beating around the bush, that's true. He got that kind of preference. Just the same way in which Barack Obama get preference over one whose parents are both African and whose parents are both African. This is it. Chris Blackwell, and Jew who was born in London, but remember that Chris Blackwell inherited wealth from his Jewish Linda family in Jamaica, whose ancestors enslaved Africans in Jamaica. So Chris Blackwell owes us reparations because he inherited wealth from his Linda Jewish ancestors in Jamaica, who enslaved Africans on the plantations in Jamaica and gave them great wealth. That's a fact. So please play the tune African right now by Peter Tosh.
SFDCRadio.com, a match of the world.
Yeah, man, no matter where you come from, no matter your skin, as long as you're a black man, you're an African. Brother Mandingo.
Yes, indeed. And let me just say something about Chris Blackwell, English Jew born in London, to his mother, Blanche Linda, who is still alive, and I think she lives in Knightsbridge. As the Linda family, Jewish family, were some of the biggest owners of plantations, sugar plantations in Jamaica, and their ancestors then enslaved our African ancestors. That's how they got rich. You know, some years ago, for Don Taylor, the former manager of Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bonnie Wheeler, before he published the book, in fact, it was actually published by Mike Henry from Spanish Town, the JLP MP, who is also, the JLP MP who deals with reparations and is also the MP for Central Clarendon. But Mike Henry is from Spanish Town, just like myself and Papa Love and yourself, Silver Fox. He went to Bedford and Smith School when it was now later called St. Diego High School, right? But what happened is that I got hold of the manuscript before the book Marley and Me was published by Don Taylor, the manager, who saved Bob Marley's life because when gunmen came to assassinate him in the 1970s, it was about 1976, Don Taylor threw himself in front of the gunmen and took the shots for Bob Marley. This was what saved Bob. Some of the shots meant for Bob, Don Taylor, and that home at Hope Road. Got. Anyhow, I was writing in the 1990s for a magazine in London called TOSH magazine. It was a monthly magazine. I had a column with my picture. And when I got hold of the manuscript, someone gave it to me in confidence. I started to publish excerpts from it. Now at the time, Chris Blackwell having his office by Notting Hill Gate, and having music by Luciano coming out, produced by Philip Fatis Burrell and other people and so on, I actually put in one of my columns the fact that Don Taylor talks about Chris Blackwell giving a very bad contract in terms of the terms. So the Wheelers, that they couldn't make any money, and when Bob hired him, Don Taylor, to become his manager, he got him because he never knew anything about the contract side, the business side of music. He wanted someone who he could trust to see about his business. And Don Taylor said when he read the contract that Chris Blackwell had given to the Wheelers, it was a very unjust contract. The terms of it, very, very unjust. They wouldn't have made any money. And so he said, no, this has to be renegotiated. And the reason why Bob Marley and his children and Rita have earned so much money is because of Don Taylor renegotiating that contract. Chris Blackwell was vexed about that, and he said that, oh, Chris Blackwell was saying to Bob Marley, why are you bringing this man to mess up the relationship between us? And Bob Marley said, well, I have hired him to be a manager because I don't know anything about business. I'm just a musician, but I need somebody to look after my affairs, and I will not interfere with the job that I have given him to do because he's qualified for doing this, which is true. And Don Taylor, who is from Franklintown, East Kingston, and a man who knew Little Anthony and the Imperials and Chuck Jackson, that type of thing, we negotiated and got a good contract with good percentages for Bob. And this is why Bob and his family earn so much money to this day. It's because of Don Taylor, not Chris Blackwell. And it was a 10-album deal. And Bob's intention after the 10 albums was to never to renew any contract with Chris Blackwell, but to put out his own stuff and to reunite with his brothers, Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer. Yes. And a lot of people don't know that the original Tough Gang label is Bob, Peter, and Bunny. If you look at the original logo, you'll see 3 fists. The 3 fists represents Bob, Peter, and Bunny. And remember, the relationship between Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer is very close. Andrew Tosh is the nephew of Bunny Wailer because Andrew Tosh's mother is Bunny Wailer's sister. Pearl, the daughter of Bob Marley's mother, Fidela, Miss Mama Fidela, is her father is Mr. Taddy. Mr. Taddy is the father of Bunny Wailer. It was Mr. Taddy, Bunny Wailer's father, who financed and took care of Bob's mother, who was his woman, and Bob. A lot of people don't know this. When Bob's biological father, Norval Marley, merely had him with this young girl in the country in St. Ann, and did not maintain and look after his son. So it was the African man, Mr. Taddy Bunny Wailer's father, who took care of Bob as a father, finance and otherwise. A lot of people don't know this. Read the book Marley and Me by Don Taylor. When I put in the TOSH magazine, the excerpt that showed that Chris Blackwell is coming from a family in Jamaica who had plantations where they enslaved Africans in Jamaica. His lawyers wrote to TOSH magazine threatening them with legal action. And so the editor of the magazine, TOSH magazine, a guy by the name, Jewish guy too, like Chris Blackwell, by the name of Jamie de Cruz, phoned me and said, Mandingo, we are in trouble. Chris Blackwell's lawyers have phoned threatening legal action that we should take back what you have said, apologize, or else legal action. And I said, let them go to hell. Everything that I have said is true because it's on there's a historical record that his Linda family were some of the biggest enslavers at plantations in Jamaica, where people were enslaved as Africans, etc. That's how they got rich. And so Jamie de Cruz told them that, and they had to back off. But from that time, Chris Blackwell and those who work for him have never liked me. I've never liked me, the Mandingo, but I am not afraid of anyone. And you know, recently, Silver Fox and listeners, you notice that the 2 children that William has, you notice that they say that the ward where Kate had the 2 children, the boy and then the girl, that the ward is known as the Linda Ward. If you don't know, some of you might know, it's called the Linda Ward. You know, I saw in a paper where Chris Blackwell had told the press, that's why it came in a paper, that where William's son and daughter were born is named the Linda Ward because it was built with money from the Linda family in Jamaica. And you know where that money from though? From the plantations where they had our ancestors, you know. So he was boasting about years ago now, that is the Linda family, it's their money that made the building of the ward called Linda Ward. That's why it's called Linda Ward. So he was vexed with what I had said, but years later he's boasting about how his family, the ward is called the Linda Ward, where future heirs to the British throne were born. So Chris Blackwell, he owes us Africans reparations. It's as simple as that. And people, get that book, Marley and Me, by Don Taylor. Make sure you get it. If you want to know the real story about Bob Marley, Chris Blackwell, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer, get that. You know, go on Bunny Wailer's website or on his things on the internet, and you will hear Bunny Wailer telling you a lot of things about Chris Blackwell. I rest my case. Read Bunny Wailer if you want to know a lot of things where Chris Blackwell is concerned. And don't let any agent be telling you that Bunny Wailer is mad when he's saying things and that he's a liar and that type of thing. Bunny Wailer is not a liar and he's not mad. Just read Bunny Wailer for yourself if you want to know about the relationship between Chris Blackwell and the Wailers. Okay? Do that. And also get the book Marley and Me by Don Taylor, published by Mike Henry. For real. Now the next song that I want you to play is Get Up, Stand Up. Now a lot of people think that Get Up, Stand Up was actually written by Bob Marley. No. Get Up, Stand Up, written by Peter Tosh and Bob Marley. And it came out first on their 1973 album called Burning. The 1973 Wailers album with Peter, Bunny, and Bob called Burning. Peter Tosh did over the Get Up, Stand Up for himself for the album Equal Rights in 1977. So right now, here's the solo version of Get Up, Stand Up that Peter Tosh and Bob wrote and sung with Bunny Wailer for the 1973 Burning. But you're going to be hearing now the Peter Tosh version that he did 4 years later, and is one of the tracks on the Equal Rights album. Get Up, Stand Up.
SFDCRadio.com, a match of the world.
Brother Mandingo, Get Up, Stand Up. Brother Mandingo? Let me just see what I go on. Yes, sir. Alright, we're not getting Brother Mandingo. Let me just see if he got cut off. Yes, let me call him back again. So you're in tune to the straight to the point with the Honorable Mandingo,
yeah,
and we are live again. We just finished the track Get Up, Stand Up, so
yes.
Yes.
Ready? So the next track that I would like you to play is Stepping Razor. Now the thing about the Stepping Razor is that, you know, in it you hear the lines about don't watch my side, I am dangerous. Peter Tosh, who I knew.
Alright, so we lost him again there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just play Stepping Razor and try to get back to Mandingo. Ross, that's Peter Tosh. So we're gonna let Brother Mandingo go back through his explanation, then we're gonna restart this track again. Brother Mandingo.
Yes, Stepping Razor. Stepping Razor actually was written by the man Joe Higgs, one of the godfathers of Jamaican singers, who taught the Wailers how to harmonize, how to sing, and taught many others in Trenchtown, Joe Higgs. And you notice one of the lines in it is, "Don't you watch my size, I'm dangerous," because Joe Higgs was short, whilst Peter Tosh, who I knew personally, was tall. You know, the tallest of the Wailers, tall brother, over 6 foot tall. So what happened is that Peter Tosh admired the song so much that he did it. And most people think that Peter Tosh is the writer, but it's actually Joe Higgs, the godfather, the man who, as part of the duo Higgs and Wilson, sang My Hole around 1959. Yes. So, Stepping Razor by Peter Tosh, written by the godfather of Jamaican singers, just like Alton Ellis, Joe Higgs.
All right. So we're going to take this again from the top. Stepping Razor.
The very last drop. Stepping Razor.
Peter Tosh. Stepping Razor, voice of Peter Tosh. Brother Mandingo.
Yes, my favorite wailer. And I didn't tell you, but you know what I'd like you to do? You played Get Up, Stand Up by Peter Tosh on his own. And I said the first rendition of it was on the 1973 album Burning by the Wailers. And as I said, Get Up, Stand Up was actually written by Peter Tosh and Bob Marley, both of them. But I would like you to find the original rendition from the Burning album in 1973, Get Up, Stand Up. And you will hear Bob, Peter, and Bunny singing. And they sing what is called switch lead. Switch lead means that at different intervals, you would have Peter leading, then Bob leading, then Bunny Wailer leading. And people who know the voices of the 3 singers will know when each one comes in to do the lead. You call it switch lead, you know, right? As my brethren Stranger Cole, the great singer of Bangarang and Rough and Tough, would say, switch lead. So if you can find, and you let me know when you have found, Get Up, Stand Up, the Wailers version from the 1973 album Burning.
Yeah, I've got that now, Brother Mandingo.
You have it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, play that, and then I'm going to tell you about some victimization that Leroy Smart, the singer, my friend, who should have performed on Thursday, the 15th, at the Hootenanny in Brixton at Efra Road, why he was not able to perform. But play Get Up, Stand Up, the original version, written by Bob and Peter. And remember that tomorrow is the anniversary of Peter's Earthstrong birthday, because Peter was born on the 19th of October, 1944, in the beautiful parish of Westmoreland in Jamaica, in the Caribbean. So please play Get Up, Stand Up, Peter Tosh, Bob Marley, and Bunny Wailer.
SFDCRadio.com, and mash up the world.
Brother Mandingo, been listening it keenly now and listening to what you're talking about, the switch.
Yeah, you hear the different parties.
Yes.
Lead, yes. You call it switch lead, yes.
Yeah, man, it's good to listen to history and listen to people who know about the music thing just like you, you know. And I've never listened to it in that way before, but now that you mentioned about the switch lead, then yes. Yes, you hear when the Bunny comes in, you hear when Peter comes in, and you hear when Bob comes in. Yes. You know? Yeah. And you see, the thing about it is that what really upset Bunny and Peter is that before Chris Blackwell got involved with them musically, all 3 used to write their own songs, and then, like say, Peter write a song, and then the other 2 would harmonize. Bob write a song, and the other 2 would harmonize. Bunny writes a song, then the other 2 would harmonize. You know, so it was just one love between them. You understand what I'm saying? But what happened, what they resented, and I agree totally, is that when Chris Blackwell came, he wanted to make Bob the leader, the focus of the group. Over there, like the other 2 were just to follow Bob. When this was not
how they used to live and work.
Yes.
And in other words, Bob to get all the prime time then, the spotlight. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
So of course they were upset about this, and then they knew that Chris Blackwell is European, Bob's father is European, and in Jamaica we know the racism where people who are mixed race get privileges over
preferential treatment.
Africans. Yes, you know. So they were upset about this.
They, as a matter of fact, they knew what the outcome was going to be, which is what it is at the moment.
Yes, exactly. So this was why they were resentful about that type of thing, because, you know, later on, for example, this album Equal Rights, Bunny Wheeler sung harmony on it, you know, and Bob sung on it, but his name is not on it because he was on contract to Chris Blackwell with Island Records. His name couldn't be on it. You understand what I'm saying? Because it would be violating the contract with Chris Blackwell, Island Records. But Bob, you'll see Bunny's name, but Bob actually sang some harmonies on this album. You see? And as I said, after the 10 album deal that Bob had signed with Chris Blackwell, his intention was to reunite with Peter and Bunny. But of course, you know, his death put paid to that. You know, that type of thing. Talking about Leroy Smart now. He was supposed to perform at the Hootenanny at Efra Road in Brixton for Cecil Rubin, the promoter. This would have been on Thursday. And guess when the British High Commission at Trafalgar Road in New Kingston, Jamaica, gave him his visa to come? The day before, the Wednesday. So there was no way in which he could arrive in time to do his show. Plus, if you're an artist who is going to perform in another country, you have to be in the country about 2 or 3 days before so that you can do radio interviews and make people be aware that you are really in the country. Not only did they give him the visa just the day before, which made it impossible for him to come to do his show the next day on Thursday the 15th, but normally they give you a month. So Cecil Rubin had rescheduled because he saw that this thing was being done deliberately late, for the show to be done on the 12th of November. But that has gone out. Guess why? They only gave him, instead of giving him 1 month, they only gave him 10 days. You see the sabotage? And as Cecil Rubin has said, to pay his airfare is over £800. Also, to pay for the visa application, which is non-refundable, is over £200. And if you're going to fast track it, it's over £300. And there is no refund. And then you don't talk about the money that you pay for flyers, for radio advertisements, and other things. So you see, this is running into thousands of pounds. You know, these people should be sued. This is sabotage. And this is not new. Leroy Smart is merely the latest in this line. Because Leroy Smart and many other artists who have been coming to this country from the 1970s recently have found that this is the type of shabby and bad treatment that they are getting when they are to come to this country to work. Not to beg, but to work. This is the kind of sabotage. And we have to support the musicians and artists in Jamaica. And the promoters who are spending and losing their monies here, like Cecil Rubin and others. So I'm letting you people be aware of this kind of... It's racist sabotage. They will say it's not racist sabotage, but what else is it? What else is it? And so I'll keep your people posted. But of course I'll have to let you be informed of exactly what is actually going on in this situation. Right? I'm gonna be playing another RICO Rodriguez music also, but this is another track that I want you to play by Peter Tosh. And it's a track called Can't Blame the Youth. Peter Tosh, Can't Blame the Youth.
Alright, let me just locate that one. And
Can't Blame the Youth, Peter Tosh.
It's a very powerful Peter Tosh track. And you know, it have a lot of meaning right now.
All the time,
yes.
Especially right now, yes.
Alright, let me locate it. Me have it here.
The man Peter Tosh. It's Mandingo, straight to the point, on SFDC radio with my brethren Silver Fox, who is operating the controls in terms of me speaking and in terms of playing the music that I select. And special request for Lima, Pablo in Stamford Hill, Papa Love, all listeners worldwide, Stocky, my brethren from Franklin Town. Special request to all of my brethren and sisters from Wildman Street, Central Kingston, all of my friends and family in London, all of my friends from St. John's Road, Spanish Town, Job Lane, Featherbed Lane, Red Pond.
And let me just big up Andrew. Let me just big up Andrew Robinson from Swiss Jam Records in Switzerland, who is always listening in. And
yes, and special request from me to this brother in Switzerland, definitely. And also to my brethren from Redpan and Homestead, who you and your father, Papa Love, knows. Talking brother Oswald Collins, originally from Redpan, and he lived in Homestead and now living up by Paul Mountain there in St. Catherine. Oswald Collins, my brethren, who my father and mother taught at school, at Friendship Government School, St. John's Road, Spanish Town. And all of the St. John's Road massive from Spanish Town who I grew up with. And all of my brethren like from Tarspen. Yes, Jennifer from Homestead, the Dillon family, all St. Catherinites, everyone from all 14 parishes of Jamaica, Manchester, Clarendon, St. Thomas, all my brothers and sisters in Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, all the islands of the Caribbean, Montserrat, yes indeed. My brothers and sisters in Nigeria, Ghana, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, brothers and sisters in Brazil, in the US, in Canada, in France, in Germany, all my African family members worldwide, Ghana, yes indeed.
And last but not least, let me just big up Larry Cormack, who is communicating with me on the Facebook, who is listening in and finding Mandingo to be a very good historian. So big up yourself, Larry Cormack.
And give thanks, Larry Cormack. Yes, indeed. And my brethren, Larry from St. Thomas, every time.
You can't blame the youth, you can't fool the youth. And Brother Mandingo,
my brother,
a few weeks ago, I made a phone call to you and to have a word with my daughter. And as I'm here listening to this track, could you tell the listening public why I made that phone call to you?
Yes, you made that call because what happened is that because of the miseducation, both in the schools and on TV, in the newspapers, and in the general society at large, and remember that Britain is a racist society. This is why you have racists who are in the police force, in the army, at your other civilian workplaces and so on, because we live in a racist society in Britain that says that those who are Europeans are best and those who are Africans are worse, etc. And this is why a lot of our youths feel bad about being identified as Africans, which undoubtedly they are Africans, like your daughter, like my children are Africans. But a lot of our youths, they feel ashamed when people call them African, even though they are African, because they have been miseducated to hate themselves, to hate their African identity. So you made that call to me with your daughter's mother because your daughter was in a serious state where she felt bad and was crying and saying she's not African, and they wanted her and her friends to, have what they call a Caribbean Day, whatever that is. But what that is saying is that anything to do with the Caribbean, because remember the majority of the population in the Caribbean is African. And so she didn't want to be associated with being African and anything to do with the Caribbean because that would be affiliated to being African.
Yeah, let me just explain.
Because the imagery on TV is of seeing people in Africa starving, children and adults, pure sufferation. And it is understandable when especially the young seeing these images and believing that this is a true picture of our people, that they don't want to identify. Because who wants to identify with suffering, with negativity, with savagery, and everything which is bad? No one wants to. And this is why you and I, Silver Fox, have to help and educate our children. Because, as Peter Tosh said, you cannot blame the youths if you miseducate them. Because a lot of the youths, their parents themselves, are mentally enslaved. And what they do is that they pass on the self-hating, anti-African mentality to their children.
And Brother Mandingo, this is why sometimes parents ain't the best at educating the youth. So we need people like yourself, people who is 100% eradicated mental enslavement. People like yourself who can teach, and I'm quite surprised. Other learned people who claim to them know everything, don't call upon man like you to even have what you call a Saturday school, something where you can teach youth about them identity.
People, yes. Let me tell you the reason for that, my brother. In a lot of cases, a lot of people who pretend that they are Pan-Africanists and that they are conscious, they are jealous of Africans like myself, who are educated and who are knowledgeable. It's an ego thing. They are jealous. And so they deliberately try to exclude people like myself and others whilst putting on events and doing things that they claim are for the good of the African race. But it's really hypocritical. It's about promoting themselves, being egocentric. It's true.
Brother Mandingo, I've said this to you before, but we're going to say it now on here. I said to a few people the other day that, you see, when I find myself with the right finance,
yes, my brother,
you will be in Luton at least twice a week doing a 4-hour show, and you will be looked after properly. That is what I'm working on, because you see, these knowledge need to be captured and need to be taught. You see what I say? Because even a lot of the elders, they're still mentally enslaved.
Yes, and they are in need of education, because it's not just the young. All ages need to be educated. All ages need to be educated. And as I said, take for example, Marcus Garvey's first wife, my mother's cousin Amy Ashford Garvey. She was a founder member of the UNIA and ACL when it was founded on the 20th of July, 1914 at 32 Charles Street, downtown Kingston, near to Kingston Technical High School, where I went to years later. And you know, a lot of times, some so-called Pan-African organizations over the years, they are having talks about my cousin. It's my cousin, my blood, Amy Ashwood Garvey, the first wife of Marcus Garvey. They know me and know it's my cousin. And they deliberately do not ask me to speak and educate people about my cousin, but they get people who don't know my cousin, never knew my cousin, to be talking about my cousin. They get people who are either males or females who are not qualified to talk about my cousin. And my cousin, they do not ask me to be speaking about my cousin. You know, one of the things I'm glad about is that, as I said in Manchester, from Friday coming through to today, they have been having something, because it was 70 years ago that there was a 5th Pan-African Congress in Manchester. And I wanted to participate, and I tried to get in touch to set up things to do so, and I was not able to. It's not for lack of trying. But eventually, I managed to get hold of a brother on a radio station in Manchester that used to be called Peace FM. It's now called Legacy FM. Now, he was born here, he's an African born here in Manchester, but his parents are Africans from Portland in Jamaica. And incidentally, Amy Ashwood Garvey was born in Portland, Eastern Jamaica. And I was able to get in touch with him by a brother who has a music program every Wednesday on Legacy Radio that used to be known as Peace FM by the name of Wizzy. Because I said, Wizzy, you know I want to do something to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the 5th Pan-African Congress, because my cousin Amy Ashwood Garvey was one of the key organizers and chairs of it, etc. And then he said, you know what? I'm going to give you the phone number for Anthony Downer, who has a program. And every Thursday from 9 to 11, that would be the right place for you to talk. And you know, it's better late than never. And I phoned Anthony Downer, who has this program on the Legacy show. And he said it's good that I phoned at this time. He never knew about me personally before, but he's having a talk about the 5th Pan-African Congress, and who on it is Dr. Umar Johnson from the United States, and Lee Jasper, who lives in London now, but is originally from Manchester. So I told him that he said, send me my bio, you know, who I am, etc. When I sent him, he was so impressed. He said, listen, I was going to let you speak a part of the time, but I want you to be on the whole show from 9 to 11. So I'm going to phone and let you be on the whole show from 9 to 11, so that you will be participating with Umar Johnson and Lee Jasper, who will be in the studio, but you will be on the entire show like them. It's just that it's by phone. And so said, so done by Anthony Downer. And I give thanks to this brother for having the foresight to allow me the platform to participate. And I have sent you links for this, and I'll send you can send that link. But the show went well, and I was glad that I was able to participate in this historic event. Because some people knew about this from about a year before and knew that Amy Ashwood Garvey is my cousin, and what I do deliberately did not get me involved in this. You see the type of backstabbing, jealous mentality? Definitely. But you see, we have a saying in Jamaica amongst Africans that what is for you can be unfor you. So you see how the creator, Amen Ra, Olodumare worked it, that I was still able to participate. You see that?
Yes.
I'm going to get a copy. Well, I said I've sent the link to you, so I would like you to even play it whenever you can on SFDC radio so people can hear my contribution on that show, which I did on Thursday. Yes. And you know, I really applaud your desire that when you have the necessary finances to enable me to be doing these educational classes for 4 hours and so. In Luton, I appreciate love this, my brother. It shows your positive commitment.
No, man, that is a definite, brother Mandingo. That
yes,
is,
and it will happen.
Yeah, it's a definite,
brother.
And it's not a far definite, it's a near definite. Trust me.
Say no more. Say no more, my brother. So, the next track that I'd like you to play now, is RICO Rodriguez, whose birthday, 81st birthday was yesterday. And it's a track called Dial Africa. Dial Africa.
Alright, man.
Dial Africa.
Dial Africa. Let me just say big up Alima. Have it locked right now. Listening to the great Mandingo. Alima,
my sister, who grew up with Dennis Brown at 135 Orange Street, downtown Kingston. And also to her mother, who is in Jamaica, and the rest of the family. And she's related to the Tucker, Junior Tucker, Jimmy Tucker, Sharon Tucker, that musical family from Trenchtown, St. Andrew, Jamaica. And big up to Pablo, my brethren, in Stamford Hill, North London. Yes. And let me just read an excerpt, the main part of my eulogy that I gave at the Requiem service for RICO Rodriguez on Friday the 25th of September 2015 in Fulham. Incidentally, RICO was born on Wednesday, the 17th of October 1934 and passed away on Friday the 4th of September 2015 on my father's birthday anniversary. RICO Rodriguez, my very good friend who I knew for about 50 years, was born 17th October 1934 in Kingston, Jamaica, to his Cuban father, Jose Rodriguez, and his Jamaican wife, Amy. RICO attended the University of Jamaican Musicians, Alpha Boys School in East Kingston. That's along South Camp Road, along with his elder and very good friend Don Drummond, the trombone genius. Lester Sterling, the great saxophonist of the Scatterlights fame, and many other musical luminaries. RICO told me many times that Don Drummond taught him to play the trombone, and that Drummond lent him his trombone to use until he could buy his own. Don Drummond, Lester Sterling, and RICO Rodriguez also lived in Almantown, near to the Roman Catholic Alpha Boys School, headed by the famous nun, Sister Ignatius Davis, who was originally from St. Catherine, like Edward Thornton, popularly known as Tantan, the gifted trumpeter from Spanish Town, who also went to Alpha Boys School. Of course, Silver Fox, Papa Love, and myself, Mandingo, we are also from Spanish Town, like Tantan. In Jamaica, RICO played in the famous Eric Dean's orchestra with Don Drummond, Ernest Ranglin, and others, but he preferred playing for the grassroots people and not in the hotels or at the rich society events. As a result, he played for the Rastafarians with Count Ozzy and his African drums. The name Mystic Revelation of Rastafari for the group came about later in the 1970s. RICO played in Rockfort and Wareika Hills in East Kingston with Don Drummond, Tommy McCook, Rolando Alfonso, and other musicians. And incidentally, the person who brought RICO to Wareika Hills and Rockfort to play music with Count Ozzy and his African drums was Don Drummond. It was Don Drummond who brought him there. Yes. When Alton Ellis, my favorite singer, did his first recording, Muriel, as part of the duo Alton and Eddie in 1956, RICO Rodriguez, Rolando Alfonso, and Ernest Ranglin, the great guitarist from my parents' parish of Manchester, were the hornsmen in the band, Clue G, and his Blues Blasters, sometimes known as Clue J and the Blues Blasters. This was the band that Sir Clement Coxodad, the most famous, the most legendary of Jamaican record producers, used when he started producing in the 1950s at Federal Studio owned by Coury, by Kenneth Coury. Yes, Clue J, the band leader, his name was really Cruet Johnson, and he played bass. And he's the man who played his band, Clue J and the Blues Blasters, his Blues Blasters, played the first ska music, Easy Snapping, by Theophilus Begford, and other songs. This was before Studio One came about. Some of RICO's classic recordings in Jamaica in the 1950s and 1960s were Let George Do It, Salt Lane Shuffle, Continental Shuffle. Continental Shuffle he did for Lloyd Matador, the great sound man and sound engineer and builder from James Street, Central Kingston, a man who I, the Mandingo, I have known personally. And also the classic called Omara Special. Rico Rodriguez also played on Easy Snapping, the same Easy Snapping, the first, what was later to become ska, Over the River, and many other classics for virtually all the famous Jamaican producers at the time, like Sir Coxon, Clement Seymour Dodd, Duke Reid, that's Arthur Reid from Portland, Black Rock, Portland, Eastern Jamaica, Lloyd Bailey, the Matador, Harry Moody from Waterloo Close, from Waterloo Lane originally, name changed years later in the 70s to Waterloo Close. But Harry Moody, the Spanish Town producer, who first recorded Count as his band in the studio at Federal Studio. And Vincent Chin, popularly known as Randy's, and others. And of course people like King Edwards, you know. And incidentally, Harry Moody is the producer of Dennis Walks, who my mother and father taught at Friendship Government School, St. John's Road, Spanish Town. Dennis Walks, my friend, who sang Drifter, Heart Don't Leave, Margaret, Sad Sweet Dreamer, etc. And Papa Love knows Dennis Walks personally too. In 1961, Rico Rodriguez came to England and continued to excel. Rico played on a lot of recordings for these companies, Trojan, Palmer, and Sonny Arbitone's company, and many others. And his trombone on Message to Rudy by the singer and songwriter Dandy Livingstone, and Dandy Livingstone is a cousin of Ansel Collins, the great organist of double barrel fame, Dave and Ansel Collins, defined this classic. It was his trombone which defined this classic Message to Rudy, which was rejuvenated when he redid it with the Specials, Jerry Dammers and others, and made it a big hit again. His album Man from Orica in 1977. In 1977 is a timeless classic and a heartfelt tribute by him to Jamaica, his homeland, and Africa, his spiritual motherland. Over the years, in Britain, he played with Georgia Fame's band with Tantan from Spanish Town, the trumpeter, and with J.J. Jackson's band, the original Undivided Roots band, the Specials, Jazz Jamaica, whose main person in Jazz Jamaica is Gary Crosby, the nephew of the great Ernest Ranglin, Paul Weller, and many other bands, with the Jules Holland Band being the last band he played trombone with. When Hillel prevented Rico from playing his beloved trombone, he sang with the Jules Holland Band. His first wife, Jean, who predeceased him, bore him the three daughters, Faye, Angela, and Tanya. His second and present wife, Tracy, they've been together 26 years, bore him the four sons, Emmanuel, Rodrigo, Castro, and Sebastian. Zara is his daughter by Amanda. Yes, so I have given audio version of the eulogy and other things that I have added for this special occasion, for real. And I'm telling you, time really, really flies in Silver Fox, because can you imagine, it's 16 minutes to hour. But
Definitely.
what we do. So at this point, I would like you to play from the album Man from Warika, Rasta. The track entitled Rasta.
SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Indeed. And I just want to say that one of Rico's good friends was my good friend too, Duke Vin, the first sound system man in Britain, who started the sound system in London, in England, Britain, and thus Europe in 1955. Duke Vin, who has Shine Shoes, Vinny was the top DJ for Tom the Great Sebastian Sound from Luke Lee in downtown Kingston. He and Rico Rodriguez were good friends. And incidentally, his son, Wayne, who he and I grew up together at Wildman Street, beside Jamaica Success Club in central Kingston. It was his birthday, Wayne Duvin's son, on Monday, the 12th of October. And I want to say special request to my brethren, Buggy, who was born March like myself, Man Buggy, also known as Bugnal, also to Jayut, and also to Ras Maxi and Rootsman from Yuatan side in St. Catherine, Jamaica, for real, you know, special requests every time, definitely. Also to my brethren, Granville, Conscious African, also to man from the east, from Trinityville and elsewhere in St. Thomas, Conscious, and all members of my family, my children, for real. And the final RICO song that I would like you to play, and it's from the album Man from Warika, is for one of the greatest African leaders ever, who gave his life for our people, the man known as Lumumba from the Congo. So the track Lumumba from the Man from Warika album of Rico Rodriguez. Lumumba.
Let me just locate that one right now.
Yes, indeed.
Lumumba. Alright, we'll find it right now, so we're going to play it. Lumumba.
Yes, indeed.
SFDCRadio.com and mash up the world.
Rico Rodriguez, Man from Warika, track entitled Lumumba. Brother Mandingo.
Lumumba. Yes, indeed. Now, here comes the final track, and it's gonna be Peter Tosh. The track called Apartheid, but I call it Inna Me Land. Come out of my land, Mother Africa, my motherland, Apartheid. So, whilst you're locating that, let me just say it has been a pleasure for I, the Mandingo, to have participated once more in Straight to the Point by I, the Mandingo, this Sunday, yes, the 18th of October 2015. I'm glad to have been able to speak about the 70th anniversary of the Pan-African Congress, because it was from the 15th to the 21st of October in Manchester. And my cousin, my mother's cousin, Amy Ashford Garvey, the first wife of Marcus Garvey, was one of the key organizers, and she chaired the first day's meeting, etc. And I also want to pay respect to my teacher at Kingston Technical High School, Marcus Garvey Jr., my political leader of the party, the African Nationalist Union, that we founded in the 1960s, whilst I was still going to Kingston Technical to continue with the works of his father, for Africans to gain power in every field. I also pay respect to Rico Rodriguez, my very good friend of almost 50 years, whose birthday, Earth Day, it was yesterday, Saturday the 17th of October, 2015, 81 years old. I also want to pay respect to my favorite whaler, Peter Tosh, whose birthday it will be tomorrow, Monday the 19th of October, who was born 1944. So 1944 to now, you know, when we do the arithmetic, because it's 2015 and he was born 1944. So the man Peter Tosh tomorrow is 71st birthday anniversary, right? 10 years difference between him and RICO, for real. So please play this final track on Brother Silver Fox, and all listeners, just be strong, because remember, as Marcus Garvey, the African leader, the greatest African leader who gave us the Black Prince solution in his Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, and in his 22 lessons book called The Course of African Philosophy, all we have to do is work to implement the Black Prince solution, the perfect solution that Marcus Garvey gave us for the African race. And of course, I also pay respect to Marcus Garvey's second wife, the mother of Marcus Garvey Jr., Amy J.S. Garvey. And I also say greetings to Mrs. Jean Garvey, the wife of Marcus Garvey Jr. Yes, indeed. So the final track, Apartheid, in a Milan, by Peter Tosh, my favorite whaler. Until next Sunday. Amen Ra, the Almighty Creator be praised.
SFDCRadio.com, a mash up the world.